In the 1950s, the Israeli kibbutz Hatzarim eked out a living farming in the desert. The crippling limitation of almost no water, combined with settler ambition and ingenuity, eventually gave birth to the invention of drip irrigation, turning this patch of desert into some of the most productive farmland in the world and transforming agriculture worldwide. We only become resourceful when we feel there aren't enough resources for the way we normally do things. Another example, Dr. Seuss helped teach millions of kids to read. His #1 best-selling book is Green Eggs and Ham. Guess how many unique words it has? The answer is 50. You could count them if you want. It was the result of a bet with his publisher that he couldn't do it. The book wouldn't be nearly as good with 150 words, let alone 1,000. You respond to constraints in your life every day. How long does it take you to use the first 80% of toothpaste in a new tube? How long does it take you to use the last 5%? If you're like me, that last 5% lasts weeks. I use less toothpaste, but it's still enough to clean my teeth. I roll the tube as I squeeze more out. I've even been known to cut off the other end to get a few more brushes worth. When faced with a constraint, we tend to respond in one of 3 ways. We lower our ambitions to fit the constraint. Dr. Seuss could have written a boring Dick and Jane book, and the kibbutz could have remained poor in the desert. Or we find a new way to achieve our original goals within the constraint. You lose your top customer and find a way to replace the revenue. The most interesting way is to transcend the constraint, using it as an opportunity to increase our ambition beyond anything we previously imagined. When there are resource constraints, instead of saying we can't because, try asking we can if. Don't just focus on your constraint. What do you have in abundance that you could use, leverage, or trade? The aircraft carrier is a triumph of this can-if thinking. Early designers knew the importance of air power, but they couldn't launch aircraft off a ship because the runway was too short. And where would you even put a runway on a ship when it's so cluttered with equipment and the comm tower in the center? And they couldn't fit enough planes on a ship to be worth the effort because the wings were too darn long. Well, they could fit more planes if they designed them to fold their wings while in storage. And they could make a short runway work if they used a catapult to launch and a cable to catch them when they land. And they could make space for the runway if they moved the comm tower off to the side and stored the equipment under the deck to act as ballast against all that weight on one side. In 2006, Audi wanted to win the grueling 24-hour Le Mans car race. The obvious answer was to build a faster car, but they knew that they couldn't out-engineer Ferrari. So they asked a different question. How can we win a race with a car that's not faster than the competition? This constraint led them to leverage their fuel-efficient diesel technology so that the car needed fewer pit stops. Audi won Le Mans the next 3 years straight. Constraints thwart us because they close off the path we're used to using. We can't do what we want because the constraint won't let us. A powerful exit ramp to create a new path is to change we can't because to we can if. We can if we think of it as. We can if we use other people to. We can if we remove X to allow Y. We can if we access the knowledge of. We can if we introduce a. We can if we substitute X for Y. We can if we fund it by. We can if we mix together. We can if we resource it by. So what do we do with this insight? Ask yourself, what is something you've learned to accept in your life and business that you would have never consciously chosen? Think about your family, primary relationships, your business or career, faith, spirituality and meaning, friends, fitness, finances, fun and restoration. In your business, think about staff and coworkers, customers and clients, shareholder value, making or buying your product or service, selling and record keeping. List all the reasons you can't change the situation. And once you have a good list of can't because statements, think of can if possibilities. What is an action you're willing to take to transcend your constraint?